Hey guys, I just wanted to quickly go over Challenge Battle and my thoughts on Challenge Battle. Last night I did get to 12 wins, which is my best. I got to 11 wins actually with no losses, which was pretty crazy. My previous best was 11 wins. I've gotten 11 wins like 2 or 3 times. So I just wanted to kind of go over the monsters and, give my thoughts on each one. So as far as Leo goes, he actually does pretty good damage if you look at his stats. Like he has pretty good damage stats, so he surprisingly does a lot more damage than what I would have expected him to. So Leo's actually not a bad pick. He's pretty good against units that rely on speed, of course, like Miles or a Misty, and he's okay against Masha. It's not like a perfect pick against Masha because Masha's fire, of course. And Sonya's the other one that you would probably pick Leo into. So mostly Sonya, Miles, and Misty. He'd be really good into those. Heigang in general is a good unit, but I don't think that Heigang on the build that they have him is very good. Mostly because he has no attack, so he's not going to do any damage at all. So if you're expecting like him to contribute other than his passive, he's probably really not going to do anything. So I pretty much never pick Heigang. He's not a unit that I really ever use. Juno's okay, but she's just okay. Sometimes I'll pick her against like Layla or something, even though she's not the ideal pick against Layla, because Layla has the debuff removal blocking thing, so she's not perfect against Layla, but she's still okay. Sometimes I'll pick her just for the strip. So if I'm like against a Velajool, I might pick Juno if I don't have something different. Like for example, I keep hitting the wrong button, sorry. Like for example, if I had Gianna as an option, I might pick Gianna instead because she also stuns. But if I don't have anything else, I might pick a Juno. So Josephine obviously is going to work decent against units that stun you. So she'll work decent against a Layla or an Etna, or possibly even a Miles that has a stun on skill 2. She's an okay unit. I don't pick her a lot. She's just okay. Sometimes she can do well. Sometimes she won't do well. A lot of it depends on if she lands her skill 1 or skill 2, her stun, her provoke and stuff. If she's not landing those skills, she's probably not contributing a whole lot to the team. So she's kind of like a mid pick. She's not something I use a lot, but sometimes I will pick her. Same goes for Vertiheel. He's kind of okay. He's a little bit weak on the survivability stats, like his HP and defense aren't that great. His speed is just okay, it's not anything fantastic. So because of those mediocre stats, he's usually not the greatest. He can be okay against stuff like Etna, because Etna, of course, is a wind unit, and she does a lot of turn cycling, and she does a lot of her skill 2, which is an AoE attack, and that gives Vertiheel a chance to revenge. Other than that, he really doesn't have a place. As far as I'm concerned, there's not a whole lot of AoE units for him to have a chance to proc his passive with a revenge attack, so I don't pick him too much either. Mei Hu Wang, probably one of the best picks in this whole draft if you have him as an option. I usually just first pick him because there's almost no draft where he's bad. Even if you're against like a Miles or a Camilla, or even a Moore, or even a Minato, he can actually oftentimes kill them just because he gets extra attack damage and speed scaling as the game goes on. So even though he has the wrong element, he can usually still do well against them, particularly because Camilla is not really on a great build. Like, she's actually pretty squishy, to be honest. And that's one of the reasons I don't like Camilla, at least this Camilla, is because she's way too easy to kill, and it feels like a lot of times she doesn't contribute a lot to the team. Minato is too slow. That's my problem with Minato. So like, you just basically ignore him until he's the last one, and then you kill him because he's not going to be doing a whole lot. He's not going to be taking turns. So that's why Mei Hu Wang actually does well against them, is because Minato's too slow, Camilla's too squishy, Miles can still do okay against him, but Miles doesn't really have the burst damage, so Mei Hu Wang can stay alive with his skill 2 that heals him. Oliver's okay. He's really just a control unit because they did not put him on a damage build. He has basically no attack and no crit rate, no crit damage, so he's not going to be doing really any damage. You're only using him to reset cooltimes, steal attack bar, stuff like that. So he's kind of just an okay unit. I don't pick him very often. He's good sometimes, but he's not a unit that I typically will pick. Vanessa, I think, is a little bit better, but it's still not a unit that I'm going to pick every time. She's okay. Again, she has no damage. She does have the revive and the 33 speed lead, the defense break, but she's just an okay unit. Ciara is another unit that I would pretty much pick almost every time. She's good against just about everything that's in this draft. There's not a lot of things that counter her super hard, so she usually has an opportunity to use her bomb at some point. So I think Ciara is a pretty solid pick. You can pick her early on in the draft, or you can pick her later, it doesn't matter. Shizuka is kind of a mixed bag. I'm not the best at using Shizuka. I don't really use Shizuka a lot. She is okay. She does pair well sometimes with bombers like Ciara because she can spread the bomb, or debuffers, she can spread the debuffs, things like that. She also has cooldown reduction on the skill 2, which pairs well with stuff like Irene. And she also can pair well with Kevorkiy, because Kevorkiy also has cooldown reduction on skill 2. So if you have both of them and they're both reducing cooldowns, you can do some crazy things depending on what team you're using. She also pairs well with Irene, so if you're constantly reducing cooldowns on Irene and getting the demon bag back, it can be incredibly annoying for your opponent. So if you have that combo, it can actually work out pretty well. Miles is just a consistent damage dealer. He's a pretty solid unit. You know, I pick him pretty often. I think he's a really good unit. He doesn't always win. Sometimes he struggles against Angela, because Angela puts up the shield every turn, and it pretty much blocks all of Miles' damage. So if you're trying to kill one unit with just a Miles and you have Angela on the field, it might be a struggle. So Miles against Angela, you know, can be a little bit tough unless you have other units that are contributing to the damage. Misty, I know a lot of people have a really high opinion of Misty, but I think he's just okay, at least on the build that they have him. He struggles against units that are high on damage. So units like a Mei Hu Wang eventually are going to wreck the Misty. The Ciara also can just bomb and do a lot of damage. The Sonya, even without attack buff or anything, can almost one-shot the Misty on turn 1. Masha also does very well. Zeratu, of course, is going to do well. Even Miying could do well. So a lot of the damage dealers are going to do well against Misty. The main time Misty is good is when the opponent does not have a lot of damage. So if they're running like a Josephine, or they have a Moore on their team, or even a Camilla, but some like stuff that doesn't have a lot of damage, like a Gapsuo. Like, even though Gapsuo does have a skill 2 for damage, other than that, he doesn't do a lot. So if the opponent doesn't have a lot of damage, Misty is a good choice, because then he'll get a chance to heal up, revenge, all that fun stuff. Giyu is good against stuff like Oliver, even possibly Ciara, things that really need their skills like Diana. Anything like that. Could even use it against Layla. So I know a lot of people may not like Giyu. I've seen another video where Giyu had pretty bad reviews. They said Giyu was not good. I don't entirely agree with that. I think that Giyu has a place. She is good in certain situations, especially because she can defense break and she can constantly put up her skill 2, and she can be really annoying for certain units. So I think Giyu is not bad. You just have to pick her in the right situation. Like, you're not going to pick her into like a Masha or something that's high on damage. Like, you just want to pick her on things that really need their skills. Diana's really good. She can be a little harder to use because she's slow. But just pick her in the right situation, like against Etna that's going to be critting a lot and giving Diana extra bar. She can be really good. She's pretty tanky. So, and she can go crazy when she Vio-procs and gets multiple turns and definitely just kill something really quickly if that happens. Riley's just okay. Her stats and stuff are just okay. I don't pick her a lot. I don't think she's that great. You can use her. Sometimes she pairs well if you have a lot of units that are based on attack, like a Meihu Wang or Ciara. Maybe it'll work out. But even then, I usually just pick something else. Rakuni is kind of similar. He's okay. He's good against debuff units. He can cleanse the debuffs and things. But I usually focus more on damage units rather than supports because it usually works better for me that way. Moore I don't think is very good. He doesn't do a lot of damage. He doesn't really counter a whole lot of things. I don't think Moore is a very good choice. I don't pick him hardly ever. Layla is very solid. Her speed slow and control is great. If you're playing against a good team, especially a team that relies on speed, let's say you're against a Miles and a Misty, and Layla has speed slow and control and things like that, Layla can actually do a lot of good things. So I think Layla's a great unit. Etna is alright, but the problem is she doesn't have a ton of survivability stats. She doesn't have a ton of damage either. So sometimes she can struggle to proc her stun on skill 3. And she does struggle against a lot of units in the draft. She's not good against Douglas. She's not that great against Antares. Masha, she can lose to Masha. Josephine can kind of counter her. Meihu Wang. There's a lot of pretty good units that actually are good against Etna. And I don't think Etna's that great in a lot of situations. She can work sometimes, but I don't usually pick Etna. Veligil, Veligil is not a bad unit in general, but the way that they have him built is not very good. He doesn't have very much defense, which means his skill 2 does very little damage. So he's mostly there for immunity and cleanse. I don't pick him very often because of that, because I don't think he's that great. He can be okay though. Angela's a pretty good unit if you're looking to do turn 2 stuff. She's one of the best units, I think. She's just tanky and her passive's just very annoying. Masha, don't have to say much about Masha. She's good damage, hard to kill, because she has immunity. I wish she was on will runes. I actually don't really like the Nemesis runes. The lack of will runes can completely ruin it for you, because stuff like a Ciara can do a bomb on turn 1 on Masha without any strip and just wreck the Masha. So I think that they made a mistake putting it around Nemesis. I don't think that's a very good choice in this situation. It makes her a lot worse against a lot of the other units in the draft. But other than that, she's still pretty good. I do pick her often. Camilla we already touched on a little bit. I don't think she's that good. She can be okay. Her skill 2 can be annoying with her freeze and slow. But because of her build, she's kind of squishy. She doesn't do a ton of damage. So she usually just ends up dying to whatever damage units the opponent has. Even in the later stages of the game where she should be good, she's really not that good. Escher, I think, is an underrated unit. I've seen other people's opinions on Escher, and they said he wasn't very good. I disagree with that. He does have speed, speed buff on skill 2, which pairs pretty well with stuff like a Miles and a Misty. Even a Meihu Wang who gains speed over time, he's going to be getting a lot of turns with a speed buff. I think he's actually pretty good. And his skill 3 strips, so it can work with stuff like Ciara. Or just strip someone so Meihu Wang can defense break, things like that. I actually think Escher is not that bad. I don't pick him all the time, but I do pick him. Xerato is okay. The main problem with Xerato is he's just slow. So sometimes the main thing with him is getting him a turn is difficult. If he gets a turn, he can do good damage. But a lot of times, your opponent's going to be faster, and he's going to struggle to get a turn. They might stun him, they might do whatever they're going to do. They might just kill him. So he's okay. He's good if he can get turns, but he struggles to get turns. So he can be good, just only in certain situations. Cigar I don't use a lot. I'm not very good with Cigar, but he can be good. He has a lot of control. strip and increase cool times, and his provokes and defense breaks. He can be good in control teams. Yeah, you just have to know how to use him, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not the best at using him, but I have seen other people use him well, but I personally don't use him a lot. Laura's good for the defense and attack speed buff, as well as the strip. She also has a stun and decreased attack speed. So she's pretty good. I don't pick her all the time, but she's kind of like a mid unit for me. She's okay, not great, but not terrible. Miying's pretty good. One thing to really be aware of with Miying is that his passive is actually really good against units that stun. So stuff like Gianna, if you're against a Gianna, Miying's actually a really good pick against Gianna. Or the Layla, you can use him against Layla. Or any other unit that has a chance to stun, Miying's actually good. You're mostly going to want to pick him into teams that don't have a lot of attack-based damage because of his passive. He takes less damage from units that have lower attack power than his. So if you're up against a lot of bruiser units, he's a pretty good pick. Or against control teams like a Gianna or Layla, he's actually surprisingly a good pick, and a lot of people will get surprised by the fact that he's actually going to use his skill 2 when he gets stunned, and that can surprise people and actually win you some matches. Gianna's just okay. She's another bomber unit, so she can pair well with Ciara or possibly Shizuka, or the cooldown reduction units to get the bombs up more often. She does have the stun and strip on the skill 3, which can be annoying. So she's kind of okay. I wouldn't pick her every time, but she is a decent unit. Kevorkiy is a unit that I don't personally really use, but I've seen her used well. So I wouldn't say not to use her, but I don't usually pick her almost ever. But I have seen her used particularly with Irene, with the cooldown reduction on skill 2, to get the bag up more often and just be extremely annoying. It can be very effective if used properly. Antares is a good counter unit, obviously against mostly wind units like Etna, Diana, possibly even Sonya. He can be also good against Miying because he gets attack buff when he procs his passive, so he can actually help kill a Miying. He's not going to straight up kill him in one turn, but he can do significant damage to Miying, and he can also be okay against Misty for the same reason. He can do a lot of good burst damage, and Misty is weak against burst damage. So he can be okay. He's not something you pick every time, but he's still decent. This guy, the Exorcist Association Conjurer, I mostly pick him to stun and control things. So for example, I would use him like against an Oliver, because an Oliver is probably not going to target him, which means that he will get extra bar from his passive because Oliver is targeting someone else. You could use him against an Etna, you could use him against a Ciara, but I mostly use him to help control units that are annoying, to give me more time to kill them. I don't pick him every time. It's only a once in a while thing, like I said, to counter other units. Gapsuo is another unit that you can pretty much pick every time and not have to worry about it. He's pretty good against almost everything. He has incredibly high HP plus the HP leader, and he's also fast. So if you're not sure what to pick, just pick Gapsuo. He's actually a good unit. Chandra, I'm not a fan of. I'm just not. He's okay. Some people have success with him, but I don't like picking him. Yanhong is kind of a mixed bag. She's incredibly squishy, but if she's able to land her skill 2 and boost your team and strip, you could land your skill 2, like put a Ciara bomb, blow something up, and like something can die immediately. So she can be really good if things go right. She can also be crappy if things go wrong. The skill 3 is also really good, but like I said, if things go right, she's great, but she also dies really quickly. So if something goes wrong, she may just die and contribute almost nothing to the team. I really do not use Ramiel and Judaya. The comments from other people were that she's just not built very well. I'll be honest, I don't really know how to build this unit, but I do know that I have not played a lot with this unit, and I just don't play with this unit hardly ever. It's not a terrible unit, but with the build it has, apparently it's not very good. Sonya's a counter unit. She can help to kill stuff like Miying, Misty, Ciara, even do some damage to a Diana, etc. You're mostly going to pick her to counter stuff and do a lot of damage to things. Minato is another counter unit. You're going to pick him whenever the enemy does not have a lot of damage and does not have stuns, because he's very weak to stuns. So you could pick him against stuff like an Etna. You could pick him against a Moore. Even though Moore is on Despair. But, you know, he's still going to get revenged by the Minato if he doesn't get stunned. And the Moore does just not have a lot of damage, so that's another reason why Minato would be good against him. Irene, we already kind of touched on. Skill 3 is really good. If you get resisted on skill 3, though, it's a lot of times GG, because she really heavily relies on that skill 3. If she doesn't have that and it's not working properly, it's going to be a bad time. But she does work well, as said before, with Kevorkiy and Shizuka for the cooldown reduction. Douglas is another counter unit. He has really high attack, so he can work well against a lot of things, and he has good HP as well. You're going to pick him against stuff like an Etna, Diana. You would not pick him against Ciara, because Ciara can just blow him up. A Misty, you can pick him against Misty. Leo, you can pick him into Leo. But he's pretty good. I wouldn't pick him every time, but he's a unit that you're going to pick to counter other things. So that's pretty much it. Hopefully this helps you guys a little bit if you're interested in challenge battle. And we will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.